Thank you all so much for joining us this evening for a very special partnership between the USC School of Cinematic Arts, the USC Libraries, La Femme de USC, the Queer Students in Cinematic Arts, QSCA, and Sony Pictures Classics. We're very lucky to have writer, director, producer Heidi Ewing discussing her new feature film, I Carry You With Me. Tonight's conversation will be moderated by Bree Russell from the USC Libraries, and she'll tell you a little bit about what the USC Libraries has planned for Pride Month. And I just want to also let you know that I Carry You With Me opens in New York and LA on June 25th, expanding on July 2nd. So please make sure to tell everyone about it. If you wanted to ask a question tonight, just put your question in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom panel. And when we open it up to the audience, we will try and invite you over as panelists to turn on your video and ask your question live. And if you don't want to do that, but still have a question, just feel free to put in parentheses for the moderator to ask the question on your behalf. That's totally fine too. And now I'd like to welcome Ailish Turner from the Queer Students in Cinematic Arts to tell you a little bit about what QSCA has going on. So Ailish, over to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, QSCA is super honored to be a part of this, as well as the lineup for a couple of movies that have already been shown and will continue to be shown throughout June. We are a student-run organization with a spotlight on queer students in all forms of entertainment. So if you're curious to learn more, definitely check us out on Connect SC or Instagram or whatever you please. And we're excited to connect with you, go on projects with you, and have many more fun screenings and panels and all sorts of things this fall. Thank you.
Thanks. So I'm going to turn it over to Bree from the USC Libraries. Again, if anyone has questions, just drop them in the box below. And I hope that you guys enjoy the conversation. So Bree and Heidi, over to you.
Thanks, Alex. And thank you, Heidi, for being here. This is so exciting to talk to you. I'm a big fan of your work. And I loved this film, so I'm really excited to be here. I will say that this is just one event of many that the Libraries is putting on in collaboration with a bunch of different departments for the month of June for Pride. And you can find out more about our events at libraries.usc.edu/pride. So that being said, Heidi, are you ready for me to pick your brain?
Girl, ask it. Let's do it. I'm ready to go.
Well, so you are a documentarian. And so I was reading that this film kind of was born out of a documentary. And so I was wondering if you could just kind of talk about the origins of how the project was started.
So I met the real Ivana Gerardo in a wine bar in the Lower East Side of New York City, where I live, in like 2005 or 6. We can't figure out when it was, but it was around then. I was making Jesus Camp, and I would be editing up the road, and on the way home to my house, I would stop at this wine bar that was owned by a Mexican man named Jorge, and he was friends with these guys, and they came in one night, and we danced salsa and drank tequila and chatted, and we became friends. And the friendship, lasted and grew over many years. And then in 2012, I had a film at Sundance called Detroitopia about my hometown of Detroit. And they wanted to come. They'd never been to the mountains, and they thought it'd be fun. And I said, oh, come. So they were part of our gang of friends who came. And then one night, the night before they left back for New York, we were having a dinner or something, and it was late, and they told me their life story. But we've been friends for 6 years, so it was all kinds of things that they had chosen not to tell me. That Ivan had a son, that how they had come to the United States, and how they had never been home again, and what they had experienced at home in Mexico. And I was blown away. It was like the most touching story I'd ever heard. So of course my first instinct was, this could be a beautiful documentary. And then I started shooting, and over time I realized that I was shooting the third act of a movie, and movies have 3 acts, and their childhood, their memories, the epic love story, I didn't feel that could be captured well with a documentary. So I continued to film them anyway over years because that's my instinct and because we're neighbors. But I also started writing the screenplay. So basically the result is I Carry You With Me, which is mostly a narrative that twists into cinema verite near the end.
That's that actually is, that's really interesting. I'm kind of interested in, at what point were you kind of realizing like, oh, I need more than this, in terms of just you wanted to tell the expanse of their life story, and obviously you couldn't capture that through documentary, or
Well, I was in denial because I know how to make documentaries, and it was like you know, I was hoping that, I mean, I was capturing beautiful material, excellent fly on the wall intimacy. And I can't tell you exactly when it was that, I mean, it was like maybe maybe not even a year into it. I'm not sure. I'd have to go look when I wrote the first draft of the screenplay. But yeah, I mean, you know, I was capturing a lot of the same scene over and over, versions of the same scene. Should I stay? Should I go? They're opening different restaurants. You know, there was a repetition of scenes because I was in their current day life, and you know, it takes many, many years for people's lives to change. So and I just realized that like I didn't want to do like recreations or animation and have them just tell me an interview how they met. I wanted to be in the club. I wanted to create Bar Franco. I wanted to be in the clandestine drag club in Jaleos. I wanted to meet their fathers. I wanted to meet them as they were 10 years old. And it just, some stories require, you know, some stories people tell me, oh, it's going to be a great documentary, and I say no, it should be a New Yorker article or a podcast or an essay or a series. And you have to really find the right genre and the right form for your story. And I always tell people that. And so I took my own advice and I said, you know what, this is going to suffer as a documentary. It won't be excellent. And so I decided to write the movie and try my hand at a narrative treatment.
that's incredible. That's and I think you succeeded personally. So what was that process like, writing a script, a screenplay? Had you written other like narrative screenplays before, or was that?
No, I'd never written a screenplay. I'd written a lot of short stories in college and a lot of fiction like that, but I'd never really tried my hand at, well, you know, screenwriting dialogue, let's say. And so, I mean, of course, the first few drafts, like, because I make documentaries, there were like these long monologue. They were like this long, like, let me tell you about the time that I was 10 and I was in bed and my father pulled up in the car and he pulled me out of bed and he threw me in the truck and he took me to the field and he pulled out. So there was a lot of these telling, you know, and I realized like I could just show it in like 4 lines of dialogue, and I could show this event and I could cast a job. So it kind of took a few drafts, like, for me to realize, like, why is this so talky? You know, it can be a lot less talky if you're making a narrative. So, and then I brought on co-writer Alan Page Arriaga from Mexico City, and the two of us, you know, finished it. And it was really, really great to have a collaborator. I'm used to having a collaborator. I direct most of my documentaries, not all, but most, with Rachel Grady. And I really welcomed having a sounding board, and it was so much better once there were 2 of us, because screenwriting is a very solitary. It brings out all of your insecurities because you're just always editing yourself. Like, oh, that sounds dumb. No one would say that. That's stupid. I suck at this. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into your mind in writing a screenplay. It's very destructive. Yeah. It can be. And so when I found a writers group at the Writers Guild, and I found a co-writer, and then I ended up going to a Sine Qua Non, which is a writer's retreat in Mexico where you like write in a convent with other people. And all of those things really helped me advance the story, to have some sort of creative collaboration and feedback from other people.
So when you were at the writers retreat, was that kind of part of your research process? How familiar were you with?
No, I was far in. When I already had I had a decent draft that wasn't quite there when I went to Sine Qua Non, and that was 2 weeks long. and it's in a small town in Michoacan in Mexico, and there's like 10 men, 10 women, I think we were, and we were mixed from all over the world, and you have to read everyone's screenplay before you get there, and so it's a very, very rigorous encounter, and I would say that that's where I completed the draft that I wanted to share with buyers.
So what was the research process like for writing this screenplay? Was it just talking a
I
lot
had
with
my friends telling me the story.
Right.
And so I had their families. I was in Mexico all the time. I can travel and meet their families and, you know, meet the original drag queen, Kakusa Minelli Krill, who's based on a real person. And,
Wow.
you know, intense amount of research. And then of course my entire cast and crew are from Mexico. So it was like 90, the cast and crew is like 95% Mexican. Most of the movie was shot there. So it was really, like a very intense process to make sure, like, what exactly would they be wearing in this place, but what music would be on the, you know, it's not a documentary, but I wanted to stay within, you know, I didn't want to be over the top. I didn't want to over or underplay things that that I was looking at, because these are heavy topics. You're looking at homophobia, and you're looking at machismo, and you're looking at immigration, and you know, it's a queer love story, and I am not Mexican, and I am, you know, I'm a straight woman, and so if you're going to do that, if you're going to take on a story like that that's not your own, you have to really humble yourself and do the work. Otherwise, you shouldn't be doing it. But my main resource were the men that the film is based on, Iván and Gerardo, who are like very, very close friends of mine. So when I would get stuck in the writing process, sometimes I would just like get in the subway and go to Williamsburg, and I would go to one of the restaurants, and I would sit at the bar and be like, okay, let's go over this again. Like, what was the ranch like, and how many cows, and how many did you work in the fields, or how did you avoid it, and where did you hide, and, you know, like, just try, and eventually you run out. They can't give you any more, and so of course you invent, and that's, you know, there's a lot of creative license that's taken in the movie, but, you know, it was nice to know that I could at least ask, that I had someone to ask.
Yeah. And what was that? Because I kind of want to go back to, you know, yeah, like a lot of the content in the film, especially like from the childhood and the kind of traumatic sort of memories, and like representing these kinds of trauma and like the homophobia, and these sort of, you know, delicate topics, and not to mention too, you know, when he comes to the US and is undocumented and struggling, how do you navigate kind of delving into these topics when they're about people you know?
Well, I always tell people not make films about, don't make films about your friends. And I broke like the #1 cardinal rule with that. And I feel really, really lucky that, you know, they're sharing their story with me, and allowing and supporting a film version of their life. It was like a real act of friendship and trust. And in return, I owed them and everyone else an accurate and compassionate portrayal of their stories. So I lost a lot of sleep about it. Like, you know, I have to get it right. Like, it's, you know, don't blow this. Like, do the, you know, if you're not sure, ask, find out, you know, and I just, you know, the first day of shooting, it was like 4:30 in the morning. The call was 4:30 a.m. We were shooting the scene, the sequence at the ranch in Chiapas. So of course you shoot out of sequence. And so there's some heavy scenes that first week. And I got to set, and I was like, I could barely walk. I was so nervous. I couldn't believe like the time had come. And so I called the whole crew together. I told the producer, I said, necesito ver el crew, que vengan todos. Please bring the crew in, and everybody. And we got in a circle, and there's like 80 people. And I told them in Spanish, of course, I said, this is a true story about my friends, Iván and Gerardo. And me dieron la confianza. They gave me the trust to tell their story. And I'm asking you, I want you to be, this is a Mexican film. It's also a cross-border production, which is very rare between Americans and Mexicans. And I'm asking you to help me get it right. I want you to own this movie, to be yours. These are stories that come from here. So let's make a movie that, let's spend our time making a film that we're proud of. And they took it very seriously. Like the crew was like, okay, orale, let's do it. And
Yeah.
it was like, she means it. And so it was really like this beautiful collaboration where I wasn't just like this outsider coming in to make this story. And, I'm really excited. The movie's opening July 8th in Mexico. And there was like a sneak peek a few months ago. And there was the Morelia Film Festival. And so far, like the Latinx critics and the community has been really, really welcoming. They seem to really love the film and are touched by it. So I'm getting signs that all the work that we did, valió la pena. It was like worth it. It took us somewhere. And so, but it's a really rigorous process. And, nothing was taken lightly. Let's put it that way.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and you were speaking about, I mean, because the film, the narrative parts of it, the first two parts of it, it did feel like the way you filmed it with all the handheld and, the lighting was really natural. It felt documentary-like, and, very, we were kind of always kind of tracking Yvonne, through the space, and it was so rich. It did feel like we were enmeshed in this world with them.
Well, I was going for hyper intimacy. I was going for
Yeah,
moment tracking of a character.
absolutely.
And I didn't want the camera to anticipate the action, which it often does in fiction. I didn't think that was appropriate. So we would like shoot the rehearsal. I wouldn't allow blocking until we were on the set. I would light it like, it was actually quite lit. It's mostly practicals, but we made it look like it wasn't. It's like
it looked incredible.
It's like realism, but there are lights there. But I was going for naturalism, but like nothing looks that good naturally. So I wanted to bring over this voyeuristic style, shooting through obstacles, through mirrors. The style developed over many, many years in my documentary work, and I felt that it was appropriate here because we're not really supposed to be in the room, and they're not really supposed to be together. I mean, in terms of like, you're sort of like in on something that it's not illicit, but it's kind of secret. And I wanted the audience to have to lean in and really listen and watch and look like, you don't want to just give everything in the plain light of day. I'm not interested in like, fully lit and super, I just, it's like, you want the audience to sort of be in a hush, like, what's happening next. And so this is a tone that in the style that we developed, in pre-production and trial and error. These are like vintage lenses. We used the Panker Eye Classics from the 60s. We also used the Baltars, which is very not an often used lens. It's very hard to work with. It's they shot the birds, Hitchcock shot the birds with it, and Margot at the Wedding, I think. Maybe The Witch, I don't know. It's a tough lens because it refracts light like you can't believe. So we had these interesting vintage lenses, which sort of brought a lot of personality and character also to the scenes. I was not interested in clarity and perfection and crispness. So, and you tell that to a DP and they're like, oh God, they don't want to look like they're bad at their job, so it has to be intentional. Otherwise they're like, I'm never going to get work again. So we used a lot of easy rig and it also blended better with the nonfiction elements that come later.
Yeah. And so what was the editing process like with this film versus all the, the documentary work that you?
Well, when we budgeted the film, I told them I wanted a very long edit that should just put it in right now, because I knew that with the flashbacks, the flash forwards, the documentary, that, of course we had a script, but I knew there was going to be a lot of shifting and trial and error. So they were like, that's really long for a fiction edit. I'm like, well, I have these elements that I have no references. There are no comps for what I'm trying to do here. I mean, if you look at something like American Splendor, these are like stylized interviews with the real people. It's not this. It's not like blending cinema verite observational moments that were filmed over years. It was a different animal, and I just had no references. And so, you know, they were like, okay. I said, yeah, like, so we can't be in a rush here. And I used my longtime editor, Inat Sibi, who edits all of my films for many years. And she'd already, you know, she'd been reading versions of the script. She was involved from the beginning. So, you know, you have to, or I had to, you have to embrace the process. It's like the process was going to be strange. It was going to be, a lot of stuff was going to get thrown out, and you just have to learn to enjoy the process, because if you fight your own movie, you can't fight what the movie wants. So, you know, it was really allowing this film to guide us to where it needed to go. And that sounds super esoteric, but that's how we work in documentary, and that's how I approach the fiction.
So is there something about the narrative filmmaking experience that you are now thinking of how it can incorporate with your work in documentary?
Well, I'm going to make more fiction. I'm writing a 5-part series, but
Excellent.
I've always used narrative elements in my docs. Like,
Yeah.
I don't, when I'm making a doc, I don't watch docs. I watch narratives. So like my references for like 12th and Delaware is like Haneke. You know, I'm making a film for HBO right now on endangered journalists, and we're really studying Altman shortcuts, like how to sort of cross-cut people who don't necessarily know each other, who will encounter each other later. So that's always happened, you know. And look, I mean, a good story is a good story. Emotion is emotion. You shoot for emotion first. So like, you know, you could shoot to be cool and like, you know, use all the tools, but your movie might not have any substance. So it's like, for me, I go for emotion first. I mean, I had all these tools, like, you know, I got rid of the dolly like the first day. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. It feels suddenly very artificial. So you have to sort of find your cinematic language and believe in it and do what's right for the characters and not what's right because you feel like, you know. I do have to say I had a lot of fun with the rain machine, but it was scripted. It had to be raining. So I enjoy the toys like anyone else. We lit the desert for 3 nights, you know, with this crane, and, you know, like anyone else, I love the toys and the tricks, but it has to be in service of the narrative. And so I think that that's something really important to just keep in mind, because, you know, you see filmmakers that, you know, have like a $2 million budget, and then the next budget they have is like 40 million. You see, sometimes things get lost. It's just like, you know, the toys and the money doesn't make your movie better. So I think that's something apropos of nothing, just to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So kind of to switch gears a little bit, I was kind of wondering about, since the film, you know, ends with Yvonne and Gerardo, who are undocumented, and they're on camera in this film, and we see them, and I was wondering if there were, you know, risks by putting them in this film.
It was not without risk. We started the movie under Obama. We shot it during Trump. We're opening it during Biden. I'm much more comfortable opening it under Biden. And, you know, I went to them when Trump was elected, and you know, we were, it looked like we had secured financing to make the movie. And I remember meeting them and saying, maybe we should shelve it. Like, I don't know anymore. Like, this is madness. Like, like other administrations didn't like randomly round people up, like who were paying taxes and employing Americans. Like, that just didn't happen. It wasn't the target necessarily, but it was so random and inconsistent and scary. And we were like, of course, talked to so many lawyers. And, you know, attitude that sunlight is the best disinfectant always was the case with undocumented immigrants. Like there's many famous undocumented immigrants who are like, you know, have been on the cover of Time magazine, who are film critics, and suddenly under Trump, it was like, didn't seem like this was as protective a measure as it had been. So I said, maybe we should shelve it because I don't know anymore. And they said, no, we can't do that. And I said, well, how about we change your names? You're Raul, you're Armando. I could change all the names. We'll maybe even change the profession. No. They're like, we've come so far. It's been so like, we want to share our story and we're tired of hiding. And this is the problem, that people hide so much that the stories don't get told. And then during that time, Immigration Nation came out. There was a big series on Netflix. So other people were taking a lot of risks like this. And so ultimately they decided they wanted to be themselves in the movie. I mean, they're not unscripted. It's just me, but use their real names. And, you know, we opened at Sundance in January 2020. And it had this beautiful reception, and, you know, but it was not without risk. As that's the short answer.
Yeah. And so, because kind of what you were talking about, the core of the film, right, is this beautiful love story that lasts decades and across continent. But I think your film really does an incredible job of showing that that's not without, it's a choice, and that wasn't without a cost, you know, for choosing. And so I was wondering if they've seen the film yet, and what they thought of it, if they have.
Oh my gosh. I was with Gerardo like an hour ago. We were like looking at the venue for the after party for our premiere. I mean, I see them like 4 times a week. Of course, they've seen it like 100 times. I mean,
oh yeah.
Yeah, no, like they live across the bridge. Like it's like family style. No, they saw the movie when I was finished with it. I just hadn't color graded it yet, but we wanted to wait till I had the final cut. I showed it to them on a laptop in their kitchen. It was super intense. And then they were like speechless. And then I invited them to a screening room that following week during the color grade, and they watched it twice more alone with me. A lot of tears. And oh man, and then we were at Sundance, and then that's 5 screenings, and then we're at the New York Film Festival, the drive-in, and then they were in Miami, and then we were at Tribeca last week. And yeah, I mean, they love the movie, love the movie. And there was a sneak peek in Mexico for a week a few months ago, and then in Morelia at the film festival, so their mothers got to see it. That was a whole new layer, because they basically have never talked about their life as a couple to their moms. So this was like a coming out. Not that uncommon of men of that age in Mexico to not talk about it. So it's been a really cathartic experience, I think, for them, and it's been a really beautiful thing. And now we finally get to bring it to the public after COVID, you know, gave us a year of a pause. We were supposed to open last June 19th, last Pride Month. And I feel lucky that Sony Pictures Classics held it. And now we're having our theatrical release.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch it again in a theater. So I was wondering, this is kind of like a big question, but for you, what is the film about at its core? And what do you want us as an audience to walk away with?
Well, first of all, the film is about many things. It's a layered film. It's about fathers and sons. It's about finding one's own and owning one's identity at all costs. It's about the price of the American dream, which is very, very high. And, or the price of pursuing the American dream, let's say. And the movie doesn't belong to me anymore. starting on Friday, the movie doesn't belong to me anymore. And
Mhm.
so I could, sure, what I want people to take away is one thing, but like what they do take away so far as what I've seen is, you know, most of us don't have immigrants as friends, and most of us don't know any undocumented immigrants. And there's like a stereotype that we've, just kind of a lazy stereotype that the media and film and TV, and it's just like what an undocumented immigrant looks like and sounds like and dresses like and talks about. And Iván and Gerardo like buck all those stereotypes, and they're extremely accessible. And it seems like it's kind of a way in to sort of re-examining this national conversation that we think we're having.
Mm.
And it's like, these are just like my friends who, you know, were looking for something else, and their own kind of happiness. And, you know, I just, these borders are like, someone said to me today, you know, cinema can sort of erase artificial borders. And I think it's so true. It's all like artifice. It's all made up. Like, who belongs here? Who doesn't belong here? It's like, no, we're all just human beings, and like looking for love and happiness and self-worth. And that's what Iván and Gerardo, that's what they represent. That's who they are. So, you know, if it makes anyone think twice about, you know, what they've, you know, constructed as their position on immigration, I think it would be helpful to sort of like soften the edges a little bit and have a different kind of conversation. So that would be great. Or someone could just cry their eyes out and walk out and feel like they've vented, and that they can you know, believe in love and humanity. And it's a very uncynical film. There's no cynicism in this movie, because the movie is about people who believe that their lives can be better, and that they believe in love, and they believe, you know, in togetherness, and they believe in a lot of stuff that like people don't really believe anymore. Some people don't, especially with everything we've been through in the last few years. So I approached the movie with a lack of cynicism. There's no like winks in the movie of like, isn't it silly? Or like, the movie really takes their journey and their desires really seriously.
Mm.
And I think that is, people find a lot of comfort in that. We're not saying this, but they were wrong. Or it was just like, well, maybe like love can win, and you know, and maybe you can like come over and like your talents can be realized in a different place in a way they weren't at home. And sometimes it happens, and it's not with rose-colored glasses, because you see in the movie the price they're paying. Iván has never seen his kid again, and it's been over 20 years, and they've put like many people through college and help people buy stores and built houses for their moms, but they've never been able to like sit in that chair next to their mom in the kitchen at home, because it's madness, because that's the situation they're in. So it's really like, you know, it's not cynical, but it's also not trying to be like Pollyanna-ish, you know, like you can never get those years back. And there's a real deep sense of nostalgia in the film, because the character of Iván is in a loop. He's always thinking about the past, and should he go home? When is he gonna go home? And what did he miss? Did I do the right thing? And what are they doing now? And have they forgotten about me? And this is a conversation he has every day, all the time. I saw him 2 days ago. And so that's real, you know? So it's just like, I try to honor that endless loop that many immigrants find themselves in within the film.
Do you feel that you, what role do you feel like your film has played for them personally? Like seeing their life,
maybe a little therapy, maybe a little horses, reflection, pride,
Mhm.
a way to communicate with their families in a way they hadn't been before. You'd have to ask them, but they seem to really be enjoying the ride. I gotta tell you.
Yeah. And so and so what's next for you is more fiction.
I've optioned a book, and it's a true story. It takes place in the former Soviet Union between 1952 and 1990. It has an amazing, intrepid woman scientist at the center of it. And I'm writing it as a 5-part series. So I thought it was a movie, and then I realized it was probably best as a series. It's a lot of story there. And I've got some other projects cooking as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
We have much to look forward to.
I hope so. If you'll have me.
So I wanted to open it up for any questions in the audience. If people had questions for Heidi.
We do have one right now from Andrew. So Andrew, I'm going to move you over, bring you on as a panelist. Feel free to turn on your video and ask it live. Okay, so we.
Hi.
Hey, there you are.
Hi there. I was wondering if the father had talked to the son about possibly entering the United States since he couldn't get a visa by just crossing the border as he had done and as his partner had done, or did they decide at that point it was just too risky to try to make the crossing that way?
It's way more dangerous to cross the border now than it was in 2000. No, never. Ivan would never suggest that for his son.
I see.
Too risky.
And I'm wondering, during the time they were apart, did they still have a relationship that was basically by phone or video chat, or did they really not have much contact over that time period?
There was no video chat. It was 2000, between 2000 and 2001. So it was payphone. They talked on the payphone. That's how they spoke, with phone cards. Yeah. So it was all telephone for about a year. And then Gerardo came after the year.
I see. Thanks.
Sure.
Have you been doing any sort of Zoom Q&As where you're connecting, you know, the families from in both different countries?
No, families haven't done any Q&As. Ivan and Gerardo have, and the actors, but no, they haven't.
All right. If anyone else wants to ask a question, now is your shot. Otherwise, I know it is quite late on your end, Heidi, so we don't need to keep you much longer.
I kind of had another question. Heidi, what are some filmmakers, because you said you watch narrative film, but are there any kind of filmmaker, documentary or otherwise, that you're finding current, I guess I should say, that you're finding particular inspiration from at the moment?
Most of my inspirations are like a little bit older references. I'm a huge Terrence Malick fan. Mike Lee, Agnes Varda. I love First Cow. I thought that was great. Super original movie. I like Miranda July, because these are like singular voices. I'm really interested in you know, a film that you can recognize who directed it. You know, that it's not generic. You know, and I find that exciting. The people who are like the auteur that, you know, is taking a lot of risks. So I really cotton to those voices. There's a lot of exciting people in the industry. I'd say doing really interesting work right now. Of course, I'm a Barry Jenkins fan. I thought Underground Railroad inspired in so many ways and risky in so many ways visually. And he did a lot of flights of fancy that I would never have expected in a slave narrative. So, and I'd read the book, of course, but He's a really exciting filmmaker to me. I'll see like anything he does. You know what I mean? Like there's certain filmmakers you'll see whatever they do. He's one of those people. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things happening in movies right now.
I agree. And speaking of seeing everything by filmmakers, your film comes out in LA and New York June 25th, and then expands July 2nd.
That's right.
Great. That's
So
exciting.
if you like the movie, tell your friends about it, tweet about it, talk about it, do the whole dance, guys.
I'm
Cinema, theaters open.
exactly. I got to obviously watch the screener, and I'm so excited to see it on a film on the big screen, because it's just
so much better on the big screen.
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
It was made for the big screen for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, thank you so much for spending your Monday night with us. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.